Today we're doing the Ultimate Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles action figure showdown. We're comparing the brand new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles classic 4-inch remastered Target exclusive figure bundle to the original 1988 Playmates Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles line. The figures that started a global phenomenon. Which era did it better? Nostalgia or modern remastered? We're going to dive in right now and find out. But before we jump into a review of these figures, I want to give you a little bit of history lesson. Independent comic creator Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird released their new comic, The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, in 1984. The series proved extremely successful and caught the attention of Playmate Toys Company. Playmate agreed to a Turtles toy line, but insisted an animated series be created as well. The new animated show debuted on December 14th, 1987, with toys following in the summer of 1988. Playmates released 10 figures in 1988, along with 5 vehicles and some accessory packs. This first wave of toys would become the classic figures that we know and love. That classic first launch line had original 4 Turtles, Donatello, Raphael, Leonardo, and Michelangelo, as well as April O'Neil, Bebop and Rocksteady, Foot Soldier, Splinter, and of course, the Shredder. First up, here are both figures together. The remastered 4-inch figure on the left and the OG 1988 Heroes in a Half Shell figure on the right. Instantly, you can see how far toy sculpting has come, but also how iconic the original remains. Let's step aside here and take a look specifically at the original 1988 Playmates figure. I have this Raphael here. Now, unfortunately, this is my original Raphael figure. This is the last figure I have. It is loose because as a kid in the 80s, I really didn't think about collector value and not playing with my figures. I played with every single toy I had. So there was no such thing as mint in box for me as a kid, like I think most kids growing up in the 80s. So most of the figures got lost or thrown away or broken or whatever it was as you got older. So it's very rare that I still have this Raphael. And I have this Raphael thanks to a loyal viewer who sent me one when she found out that I was a huge fan of the Turtles. So right off the bat, we're going to go ahead and look at the sculpting on this. And the 1988 Playmates figures, they've had that gritty, muscular, almost grubby texture that defines early Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles merchandise. Each turtle has a unique sculpting, from Leo's stoic expression to Mikey's goofy grin. As you can see here, you've got the muscle lines on the figures, on the arms and across. You got a wider base. I'll be 100% honest. This figure feels a lot wider compared to the remasters. You also have the removable belt here. Of course, I don't have any of the weapons because, like I said, lost all that stuff. And then here's the detail on the shell. Good for the time. Still not a lot of detail on it, though. But this is that original 1988 Playmates Raphael. Meanwhile, we're going to take a look at the remastered 4-inch figure from this Target set. And these figures aim for cartoon accuracy with smoother, more polished details. Lines are clear, proportions more consistent, and the shells have a sharper molding. As you can see, there's not really all that definition in those veins in the muscles here. The arm bands and elbow pads and knee pads are a little bit bulkier. They look more like knee pads. The belt is one solid piece that fits the figure nicely. It's not moving around. And then you do have a lot of detail in the curving and markings on the shell there. Just a really nice figure. It feels really good in your hand. Honestly, it's, like I said, not as wide as the classic Raphael, that 1988 Playmates figure. It's more sleek, more slimmed down, more streamlined figure. Feels really good in your hand. So really, when it comes down to it, depending on your taste, you're either into the raw vintage charm of this classic 1988 figure, or you're more for the refined animation inspired look of the remastered Target exclusive figure here with this Raphael. Up next, we're going to talk about the paint and color accuracy on these two figures. Now, paint applications have improved dramatically over the decades. And for the 1988 line, it uses this bold, simplistic look, bright greens, simple mask tones, and minimal shading on the figure. But when we get to the remastered figure, it introduces richer tones, better mask structure, sharper edges, improved belt details, and colors pop more, and the paint feels cleaner overall. As you can kind of see, there's a lot more detail between the two figures in the remastered when it comes to the bandana than there was in the classic. You get a lot more facial expression here. You get a little bit bigger, it looks like, snout on the remastered Raphael compared to the classic Raphael. And the mouth is pretty similar on these, except for on this one here, you kind of have that blank space there with no color on it, as to where in this figure they added just a little bit of touch of white to that. But I mean, the head sculpting and mouth sculpting are pretty much comparable and complementary to each other. But like I said, I do like the more detail and more color pop on the new figures compared to the classic. But there's just something always about these classic turtle figures that are gonna breathe nostalgia and just really send fans of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles crazy. Now we're going to talk about articulation and playability. The originals were designed for play, not for posing, which is basic articulations: head moved, arms move, legs move, but they're and the hands twist at the wrist. But that's pretty much it. Not a whole lot of articulation, not a whole lot of movement, not a whole lot of like being able to pose them cool or anything like that. This was just made to really play with, be a kid and play with in the tub or the sandbox or whatever and however you played with your turtles figures. Again, not a whole lot of articulation. Of course, the head does move side to side, the arms go up and down, your wrists rotate. Kind of same with the legs, but when it comes to the leg, you get no ankle movement, nothing like that. Your articulation is pretty basic on the classic Playmates figure. But then we take a look at the remastered figure, and the remastered figure offers a modernized articulation for more excessive posing. They're sturdier, hold poses better, and feel more like a collector's piece rather than pure kid toy. You got a lot, of course, you got the same, articulation in the wrist, but you've got the shoulder movement, but the arms come out, go wide, in, up, down. You can really kind of turn the forearms. You got more bends in the joints here on the legs. Your legs move. You got some articulation here in the ankles that really just allow you to get a better pose for your figures for those ultimate fight scenes. If you're going to put it in like a display case or however you want to display these figures, I do prefer that. I do like all the articulation and display ability these new figures offer, especially being a little bit older to where I'm more of a collector and don't play with toys. I just like to be able to put them on a display case, kind of make them a conversation piece and have them be a little bit more articulated so that way you can get them in those cool iconic fight poses that, you might remember from the movies, the cartoons, or the comic book. I think really overall, when it comes to articulation and playability, the 1988's toy beats them on pure nostalgia and charm and durability, but the remasters win for display and pose potential. Accessories are a big part of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles legacy. Nothing beats the old school weapons rack from the 1988 figures that came with all the gear connected on a frame that you had to break out, but they were all kind of that dull brownish color. I don't have any of the original weapon racks, but I will display a picture here on screen as I'm voicing this over to kind of give you an idea of what that original weapon rack looks like. So now the weapons for the remastered figure here, as I drop Raphael's size in the video, the remastered figures deliver updated, cleaner sculptures with improved quality plastic and a sharper detail. The weapons feel more accurate to the cartoon and less clunky than the original. When I pick up the size and look at them, they definitely feel a lot sturdier than those old brown ones that you had to break apart. The tips aren't pointy. They don't feel flimsy at all. I remember that was the biggest part with like the Leonardo figure, is that the sword would always bend and be kind of misshapen and wavy and didn't look right. But these sides are definitely a beautiful upgrade and a welcome upgrade when it comes to these figures. Up next, this section's for the package lovers. This part is for you. The 1988 Blaster card is pure nostalgia. Neon colors with wild comic art and the classic 80s explosion design here. Of course, I don't have it in package anymore, but I still do have the bubble card here. And of course, you had the back where it just talked about the turtles. It had all the figures in the collection, and it also had a brief like synopsis about the characters and their likes, dislikes in height, weight, age, shell, things like that. A little bit more just kind of information about that turtles with the, like I said, perfect, pure 80s classic nostalgia here and the original blister card. But the remastered bundle isn't nothing to sleep on either when it comes to the art, as it pays homage to the classics a little bit. Here's the package after the figures are removed here. Let me flip the back here. Like I said, this pays homage to that early era, but with modern printing, cleaner layouts, and collector friendly features. Both look great on a shelf, but the 1988 cardboard is unbeatable when it comes to that vintage charm. But I do like that you have, I don't want the light to glare on it here, the art with the shredder on it, all the turtles, Splinter, action figures inspired by the ones that started your collection. There is some beautiful art on this collector's edition packaging as well. And if you look on the inside of it here, you have kind of like what feels like the turtles layer a little bit. You can see I didn't take all the weapons out of there, but it has some interesting art on the inside as well. Now, when it comes to collector value and market prices, the originals have skyrocketed on the secondary market. Loose 1988 turtles can range widely, and mint on card figures can command serious money. The remastered six pack is a much more affordable and accessible product, making it a perfect entry point for a new collector or anyone wanting that classic look without the vintage prices. Next up, we're going to talk about the other figures. I know I showed you the Raphael, but that was just because it was the only loose one that I could have and do the comparison between the 1988 original and the new 1988 remastered bundle figures. We're going to take a look at the rest of them here, and I will put the picture up on the screen of the original versus the remaster here. And here we have the remastered Donatello, and this is a beautiful figure on this Donatello. Now, if you really want to get down to the nitty gritty of it, I feel like the beak on Donatello on the remaster is a little bit bigger. The bandana adds a little bit more facial expression to it that I feel like makes the figure really pop and stand out. I love all the articulation. I love how it feels smaller in your hand. It almost nails this olive green or deep olive green cover or color on the figure. I do love that they actually added his purple rope to the bow staff, as well as a different brown and more darker brown color to the bow staff that I feel like really stands out and makes this figure pop compared to just the standard fully brown, no color on the weapons whatsoever. Very nice Donatello figure in this remastered set. Next up, we're going to take a look at the Leonardo. Here's the Leonardo figure. Again, I can't tell. I don't know if it's just my figure or it's all of them. There seems to be like kind of a crack or discoloration. I can't get my camera to focus here on the Leonardo snout right here. Um, but otherwise, the Leonardo on the original figure did not have any coloration here. It was just green. So they went ahead and added a little bit of white here to the mouth to make it look like its teeth. I like that. The other teeth are pretty much spot on here. I love the little bit of, design added to the mask and shading added to the mask to kind of make it look like Leo's got his eyebrow raised a little bit. Again, I love the coloration. The coloration is just a little bit dimmer on this Leo figure compared to the original. I feel like the original was a little bit brighter green, but that's all right. I love the bandana, the belt, and of course, like I was saying, when it comes to the weapons and accessories, Leonardo's sword is a big change compared to the original. The original, when you were popping it off of that pack, were kind of flimsy and they'd bend and they were kind of small and they were all one color. I like that his katanas are silver in this set. You have the bigger like wrist guard here on the sword, as well as the color on the handle. It just really is distinguished and identifies Leonardo, and it just is a lot thicker plastic, which makes the swords a lot better to use, a lot straighter, and not quite as flimsy as they were on the original Playmates figure. Up next, we have Michelangelo. Yeah, everybody's favorite Michelangelo. The color is pretty much spot on. Again, here they added a little bit of white here onto the side of the mouth, where notoriously that was just pure green previously. His bandana seems a little bit smaller on the remaster figure than it was on the original 88 figures. That bandana seemed a little bit whiter. These, again, the color is almost there, not quite the same match on color, but still good. What I think really sets this Michelangelo figure apart from its 1988 original counterpart is the nunchucks. Remember when you had those originals and you popped them out, the nunchuck was just one solid piece that really didn't want to bend, and you had to bend it over to put into his hands. Well, not in this remastered. They actually add a chain to the nunchucks. They spin. There's a lot more use to them. It makes it a better display piece. I like, again, the silver with the color match on the handles, and just how well these look like real nunchucks really makes this look like a perfect Michelangelo figure. When it comes to these figures, I really like just the accessories. I think, man, like, just look at that nunchuck on Michelangelo. It just so well done. Beautiful Michelangelo figure here on that remaster. And of course, we already talked about Raphael. So we're going to talk about Master Splinter a little bit here. And I think as far as the figures go, the most drastic overhaul on the figure is this Splinter. Remember that classic Splinter kind of had no eyes, just that white eye. It had a little bit of gray for the chest here, which this one still has. The robe was cloth, to where on this one it's more of a textured plastic. You had the cane and the bow and arrow, which this one comes with the bow and arrow as well. The cane still comes into a sword. They put the little bit of the silver or gray on the sword there, if you will. The sword still hides in the cane, but there's that definition on the face. He looks great. It is a master figure, a perfect figure. He's got a little bit smaller feet. I love the way this Splinter figure looks, and I think the remaster Splinter figure is just far and away beyond better than the original, but that's just my take on it. I like the fact that he doesn't have that cloth uh, robe on. The figure's got a lot more detail. They really showed this Splinter remaster figure some love, and I, for one, can definitely appreciate the attention to detail in this Splinter figure. I think the figure I feel like is the weakest on this would have to be the Shredder. As to where it looks just like the classic has a little bit more face here that you can see. This part here is a little bit up higher, so you can see a little bit more of his face. I feel like the mask is really up there, kind of makes it really hard to see. I feel like out of all the figures, the one that's the most flimsy is this Shredder. I don't know if maybe it's just this version I got or this particular box, but I feel like the legs are smaller. They're not as thick. The articulation here makes it feel really flimsy. I don't know. I just feel like the one figure out of the set that just isn't a hit for me is the Shredder. I would have preferred the cloth cape in this aspect. I'm not nothing really against the plastic cape here, but there's just something to be said about how those old school figures had the original cloth on it. Where I said I didn't necessarily like it for Splinter just because I felt like it always came off and you were losing it. I would have liked that at least for Shredder. The color match is pretty good. I feel like the original figure, the color on the helmet was a little bit lighter than it is here, but I just think when it comes to the remastered, I feel like the Shredder might be the weakest figure in the six pack, just for sheer like ability, durability, I guess. It just feels smaller in your hand, doesn't feel quite as sturdy and solid as the other figures, but I'm not going to complain too much about that. It kind of reminds me more of like the old school GI Joe figures from the 80s and 90s when I was a kid than that classic original Shredder. It's not a bad figure, but like I said, it just feels like when it comes to this remaster set, this is kind of the weaker figure in the set. So now it's time for my final verdict. Which is better? Honestly, both lines shine for different reasons. When it comes to the 1988 Playmates, I feel like they went out on raw nostalgia, gritty charm, and iconic sculpting. But where the remasters really shine are the painted accessories, the modern sculpting, the display quality, and just your full on articulation in the display ability of these figures that really make them a conversation piece, not just an action figure. But what do you think? Drop the verdict in the comments. Are you team vintage? Are you team remastered? Don't forget to hit that like, subscribe button, and click that shell bell so you know when we drop more TMNT product and information. If you like more videos like this, I got other figures I would love to review. I have a Last Ronin Michelangelo that I really want to review that's kind of in the same vein as these. I would love to do that. Let me know, do you want more toy review videos? Do you want more review videos? Things like that on this channel. Definitely let me know. Sound off. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one.
In the shadows we gather, sharing tales of the stream, from comics to movies.